So anyhow, I did it right there.
Oh, yeah.
Second year students. Anyhow, so second years. Just think about it, back when you were young, innocent second years.
Never a second year student.
I was never innocent.
What's that?
I was never a second year student.
Never. Back to page 57 real quickly, back to where we were on Friday. Back to where we were on Friday. There was that monstrously long sentence that Drew worked through and did a beautiful job of working through it. And I guess let's do this. We'll do this. You've already written a little diagram in your notes once. We're going to look at that again. We're going to keep that up and do a second one with Cicero's. All right? So we got Asconius's version. All right? The guy that we read before, basic court history account. And you got Cicero's version. Cicero's version was what we did on Friday from his speech, Pro Melone. So you've got the Appian Way, and that is in both versions. They both agree that there is a road called the Appian Way. And that may be about the last point where they agree on anything.
Wait,
Is there really?
Claudius and
How
Milo are
can we
both there.
know
We're still in the game.
that there's a right? We're still in the game.
What if they called it like the Happian Way, but the H got lost?
And the H got lost.
In translation.
In translation, yes.
So what if like
Oh, that sounds like my type of
Appian
road.
Way. Right. I think both guys would agree that there's a city called Rome. I think they would
Maybe.
be pretty.
I've never heard of Rome.
Oh,
Maybe.
they also agree that Claudius and Milo were both there.
We'll get to the people here in just a moment. Down the length of the road, there were, what do we have, 3 other cities?
Towns.
Somebody give us the 3 other towns. I'll tell you what, give them to us in order, roughly going from north to south. Roughly going north to south there, Maxwell. All right, so we got Bovoli. We've got Aricia. And we have Lanui. Okay. He's a geography hog. All right. So there we go. So we got our Bovoli. We got our Aricia. We got our. All right. And I think they would agree that that was Then there's also these 2 guys, Claudius and Milo. And I think they would agree that these 2 human beings existed. According to Asconius, who was going where? Miss Zoe.
Okay, I'm almost there. Okay. Milo was going down
Okay?
from Rome,
Okay, so we'll start from Rome.
and
He was headed in this direction.
yeah,
Ultimately, he was headed where?
Aricia.
A little more.
London.
Oh,
And I'm gonna put the dots because he never made it there, but he was headed to Lanuvia. Okay? And so we'll label that Milo. According to Asconius, what about Claudius? Where was he going? Lauren. He was coming from Aricia and headed back towards Rome. Okay, but again, he certainly never made it. Okay. And right here, more or less, is where they met. Okay. Now, according to Cicero, that Claudius was headed from Aricia toward Rome, and they met, Claudius and Milo did, somewhere just past Bovoli. Well, I don't think that's in question either. I think the fact that that's where this all went down, I think Cicero would agree with that. I think Cicero would agree that Milo was certainly headed down. I think Cicero's still there. But it's what Claudius was doing on the road that changes things. So according to Cicero, from Friday, what got Claudius on the road? Leah. So according to him, what had Clodius done?
Oh, he set out after him.
All right, so actually he set up before him.
Oh, before.
So we're gonna have the arrow coming this way, but we're gonna have, I don't know how you wanna do this, but I'm gonna have like little motion marks. Like going fast,
Okay.
like the Flash.
I don't get it.
No.
Please make too
I like
many
it.
Flash references.
You know what? You can never have too many Flash references.
You
I love the
can't.
Flash. You cannot have too many Flash references. Yeah, no, there's the best. Okay, so somebody last year, one of our seniors, guy named Grant Bockel, gave me a flash drive that looked like the Flash. It was literally a flash drive.
Can we get that in the musical was a fan?
I know. He went as Barry Allen as one of his other identities. Yep. Hurry. Yes.
Did you know they have a pen made for that?
You know what? Pezzas are wonderful. All right.
I have a collection of them.
According to him, Clodius got there just so that he could turn around and meet Milo. It was intentional. He set out with purpose because he wanted to get it, right? It was this complete setup sort of thing.
Did this
So-
actually happen?
What's that?
Did this actually
The
happen?
murder actually happened.
We don't know which one.
I actually
Murder.
We
Mortar.
we know that Clodius ended up dead and Milo was there. Now, how it actually went down, all you've got is what I've got. Now, Cicero says something interesting on page 59 about Milo on his way down. Well, I want you to reflect back for a moment, if you would, back to Asconius' account. According to Asconius, what kind of bodyguard did Clodius have with him? What kind of bodyguard? Delia.
Clodius had 30 slaves and 3 friends.
30 Serui, and I'm going to add the word that he used, 30 Serui expediti, lightly armed. As opposed to Milo, who was coming down with what? Gladiators, right? Milo's group, he had this Agmen Servorum. He had this military marching order of slaves at Gladiatorum. Gladiatorum, there we go. So you had slaves and gladiators, kind of more military. Clearly, Milo, in Asconius' account, has this paramilitary group with him. Cicero's going to make a suggestion that Milo was not traveling so well armed. Yes.
So it was like Clodius has like his light gangsters guys with like only knives, while Milo has a bunch of black dudes.
Well, yeah. Milo's got a bunch of dudes with, grenades and, extra ammo clips across their chests and going all Rambo. I mean,
Yeah, extra arrows.
Extra arrows, right? Extra arrow clips. All right. Page 59. Milo auta. Cum in senatu fuis sed eo die. Quoad senatus est demissus. Domum venit. Now, I gotta put this up here. We're gonna get Cicero. So Cicero has said that Clodius left what? To hurry up and get out there on the road to get Milo Andrew. He left a rowdy meeting, right? It was this Contio turbulenta was his words for it. Contio turbulenta, this rowdy meeting. He said that he left it early. He said he never would have left a meeting like that if he hadn't been up to some sort of bigger crime, right? He left early, right? Now, let's see how he paints. How does he paint Milo? He says that day. Yes. Eerie. Yes, eerie. The whole thing is very eerie. It is eerie. It's Early. He left Early. All right. So Milo. Oh.
Milo.
When he had Fuisset in Senatu that day, when he had been in the Senate that day. So first of all,
When who was?
Milo. He says Milo in the top of page 59. It says, when Milo had been in the Senate that day. So right away we got a contrast. The way Cicero paints it, here's Clodius in his back room of a crack house having, some sort of drug meeting. But here's Milo in a neatly pressed toga. Right? Oh, hello. All references to crack houses are not historically accurate. Thanks for the catch. Yes, it's a catch. Yes. We need to have a little disclaimer running across the bottom of the screen. Don't take anything in this class too terribly seriously. Unless it's maybe the grammar. All right, anyhow.
I love grammar.
We know.
Well, there's that. As opposed to Milo, he says, you got Milo, here he is in the Senate, duly elected position, right? You can almost imagine him in his nice starched toga. In fact, he had been in the Senate. Quoad senatus est demissus. Until the Senate was dismissed.
Was there actually a Senate meeting that day?
Cicero says there was. There's no earthly way we would know. We, at this stage of history, we would have no way of knowing.
But like, wouldn't they have known that?
No, presumably Cicero can't be lying. Right. That's too close. People would go, oh no, there wasn't. So presumably that's true.
There's some sort of.
But the contrast. This guy cuts out early of this criminal meeting so he can go to a bigger crime. This guy stayed to the very end and did his duly elected responsibility. What a saint.
They were having a crime.
He's doing the will of the people. By golly, the people sent him to the Senate and he's going to do his job. Yes. We'll get there. He had been in the Senate until the Senate was dismissed, and then he dominated. Then he went home, and this is the most interesting mundane detail. He went home, and Caltheos at Vestimenta changed his shoes.
Guilty.
Went home to change.
Wait.
This guy.
Oh my god.
Wait, so his shoes are not considered clothes?
Honestly, I heard nothing except your exclamation and then Emerson reaching over like you'd had a heart attack.
Well,
Mr. Hurricane.
It's important to know. It's important to know that no delias were hurt during the making of this video. Moving on.
Fourth wall, just like.
Shoot code went down. So this guy, right? He leaves early from an R-rated criminal meeting to go to something big and bad. This guy stays to the end, and then by golly, just a regular Joe. He just goes home, changes into his Sperry topsiders and some khakis, Yeah.
Do they have like a name for regular guy?
Just a regular Gaius. He's just a regular Gaius, Yeah.
Oh my god.
That is cat.
Well, you're going to see it. He goes and he changes his clothes and his shoes, and he paulisper comoratus est. We got to get the first word and the last verb. And he paulisper comoratus est. Well, let's get those two. For a little bit, he comoratus est. Get the last verb of the sentence. He waited for a little bit. Again, Clodius can't get there fast enough, right? He wants to get out and set up an ambush. Where here's Milo, he's taken his time. He waited for a little. What's that?
I love how it says as usual.
Whoa, oh, well, now, you're gonna get deeply offended by this passage. I'm gonna flat out warn you. I'm gonna flat out warn you. You and you are gonna get highly offended by this next passage. All right? You too.
Wait, what is it? It's about.
He waited while his uxor, while his wife, comparat herself, prepared herself ut fit, as usual. Here's the wife taking a long time to get ready. Here's Milo. He's quickly changed his clothes, but still, he's waiting.
I'll be ready in 15 minutes, sweetheart.
That was really disturbing. That right over there was.
That was not me, that was his wife, I'm sorry.
That was.
You should blame it on
There's Milo. He's kicking back. He's reading the paper. You ready yet, honey?
That was Zoe.
That's fine. Take your time. Just read the paper here. Yeah, no.
Well, at least she's trying to look nice, like all these. Okay, yeah, that's what I.
All he gave us is Sperry's and some
Okay,
khakis.
so
Right.
problem.
Right, right.
Yes.
Yes.
The reason why
problem
women
with that.
take so
I
long
think
is
that's
because
true.
society expects them to look perfect all the time. So yeah, we're gonna take like an extra 15 minutes just to put on makeup so that you don't, think that we look hideous just for you, What about us? Do you think we like putting on makeup? Do you think we like that?
Most women put on makeup for
Most people
Shut
make
up.
no right now.
Like really times, I literally have been already to bed.
Moving on. So, in other words, here's the picture getting painted, right? Listen, picture getting painted. Good family man. Normal, average guy. Good citizen. What's that? No, I just.
You would have probably been like feeding them.
Right. Well, oh yeah, he would have been feeding the kids.
It's like.
And then it says, line 14. Then, talk about Milo. He profectus. He set out at id temporis. At that time, or that point of time, cum Clodius. When Clodius. If, and quida means indeed, if indeed he was venturus, get the right, now what kind of a participle is venturus with the UR in it?
Oh, future?
Future, it's a future participle. He set out at that time, when Clodius, if he was indeed venturus,
Going to
come back to where? Rome on AODA, on that day, patuis et redire,
he would have returned.
would have already returned. Now, he's suggesting if Clodius is headed back to Rome the way Clodius claims, and the way Asconius later tells us, just a second, Cicero's saying he should have already been back to Rome by this time of the day. This was late. Milo had waited until the end of the Senate meeting. He did not get an early start on the road. Usually people like to travel during daylight and before it's going to even start to get evening. He says, if Clodius really planned to be back in Rome, he should have already been back in Rome by then. Now, obviously, and again, we'll get you here, Emily, but what's wrong with that sort of logic?
Why is
Yeah. Well, first off, he wouldn't have known specifically, but think about the logic here. What's wrong with this logic? Yeah.
Well, like, there's no way to say how fast the race is traveling.
Right.
Like how fast he averaged. I wonder how many states
Or whatever reason why somebody isn't where they said they were going to be at a certain time. But if somebody doesn't show up to class, right, I can't just assume that the person is being irresponsible. They got hurt. Maybe they're in the nurse's office. He got murdered. Well, I'm just saying. there's a whole host of things here. He's making an assumption which doesn't necessarily hold water. Yes. And I apologize for that. When I first uploaded the video last Friday, it was very clear he was not paying attention because he was talking. These are not the droids you're looking for. Do you know Star Wars Episode 4, the original first Star Wars movie? There's a scene in Mos Eisley where Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi, and Luke Skywalker are going to try to find someone with a ship that will fly us before they've met Han Solo and Millennium Falcon. There's some Imperial stormtroopers who stop them. And there's R2-D2 and C-3PO, and they know there's some escaped droids. And because the stormtroopers' minds are so weak, Obi-Wan Kenobi just kind of does this little Jedi mind trick, and he says, these are not the droids you're looking for. And the stormtroopers go, these are not the droids we're looking for. You may move along. Move along now. And people use that as an expression now that's got passed into just English. Especially, these are not the droids you're looking for. To indicate, obviously, somebody is hoping to do this. But you obviously, you can see right through this. If Clodius should have already been back home and not on the road at this time, then why was Milo? Emily's observation is spot on. Now, Cicero's trying to mask it with this, oh, well, he waited for his wife, and he was a good husband, and good citizen, and all that stuff. But the logic of this absolutely falls apart. It's tissue paper. Okay? Obuiam fit ei Clodius. Line 1560. Clodius obuiam fit ei. Clodius encountered him. Clodius, having been expeditus, lightly armed. Now, according to Asconius' account, it was not so much Clodius that was lightly armed, but who? No, not Milo. His slaves. His slaves. Cicero kind of transfers that and says that Clodius was lightly armed. And that actually made him. He says Clodius lightly armed, in equo, on a horse. How does that compare? That's the same.
Yeah.
Right, so he's lightly armed, and that pretty much squares with what the Asconius says. He was on horse. That squares with what Asconius said. And he emphasizes not just what he was writing, but what he was not writing. He was in nulla rida, not in a carriage. It's going to be by contrast. He was not in a carriage. He was with nullis impedimentis. He had no baggage. This dude is lightly armed, lean and mean, he's primed for the attack. Hold on, Mark. With no baggage. He was with nullis Graecis comitibus. No Greek companions. I'm going to explain that. Racial slur in there. He was with no Greek companions as he solebat, as he was accustomed to be. And he was sine uxora, without his wife, which he numquam fere, which he almost never was. Right? He's got no wagon, no baggage, no Greeks, no wife. Okay? Well, multiple things here. First of all, he's painting a picture of this guy who is, again, lean and mean, ready to attack. This guy is an assassin. He's not encumbered by a whole bunch of people and all this stuff. He manages to get in a couple of kind of digs, though, at Clodius. He says he wasn't with his Greek companions as he usually was. We got to talk a little bit before we get your comment. We got to understand every culture has had, I want to still on record saying the whole way, some sort of prejudice, whether it's ethnic, geographic, material, based on money, you name it. There's going to be something that separates us from them. But we are them. They are not. And for the Romans, it was stuff that came from the East. The East was suspicious. The East was Greek. And you just didn't quite trust those Greeks. Part of it, I think you do see, it goes back to the great story of what in the Trojan War. The horse, the Trojan horse, right? There was treachery written right into one of the foundational stories for the Romans. And he says he always had his Greek companions. And people would have been, oh, so that's the kind of guy Clodius was. Now here's Milo, he's a good Roman, he's in the Senate. Here's Clodius, he's hanging out with a bunch of Greeks, right? And so it's kind of a little bit of a racial slur there. Yeah, Leah.
So is this Cicero's like interpretation of Clodius and Milo?
Yes.
So it's not Asconius's?
No, we're done with this. We already heard what Asconius had to
Okay,
say.
what do the check marks mean?
Check marks mean though that these things definitely squared with what Asconius had to say.
Okay.
Yes.
What reason would Clodius have even had for like killing Milo?
Well, he's a bad man, and you just didn't like him.
They didn't know each other.
Well, no, they would have known each other. Certainly, guys at this age, or at the same time period of being in politics, they really would have certainly known each other. And they were, as we said before, on opposite sides politically, whereas Milo was with the Optimates kind of senatorial party, and Clodius tended to align himself more with the Populares, so they would have known each other, and reasonably may well not have liked each other. Yeah.
So, were there no, like, witness accounts of, like, who was at what city when?
Well, here's the deal. The only people that really matter are Clodius, and he's dead, and Milo. Slaves, those who survived, you can't trust their testimony. Slave testimony in Rome could only be accepted after slaves had been tortured. They were required by law. You had to torture a slave before accepting a slave's testimony, because it was believed that a slave would not tell the truth. That if possible, the slave might give false evidence, especially if it would help his master. Maybe the master had promised freedom, and so you think, well, the only way I can really trust a slave's testimony is when you torture the slave first, and we make sure that they're not answering for any other reasons. And so slave testimony was always suspicious anyhow. Yep. Yeah.
I'm still really confused on how Asconius, I mean, some of the facts line up, but if Cicero came first with the story, how did Asconius find all the facts after Cicero gave a speech, and yet?
Now, there were some witnesses who would have testified. He would have got some of that. We don't have any of the prosecution speech, so we've been drawing some information from that. So we don't have all of his sources, but presumably he would have consulted Drew, and then we have to move on.
Is there any, like, possible way a third party could have been, like, integrated within this, like, had they shown up while they were near each other, they could have, like, modified the situation or caused it?
Possibly. I mean, there's no evidence that has survived to suggest that. But very possible. However, he says, and referring to his own client Milo, he says in line 18, he says, this insidiator. This highwayman. All right. Now, that's maybe a good word, maybe not. I don't know. What's a highwayman?
Someone who jumps in and robs.
Someone who robs, someone who lies in wait along roads or highways and then waylays and attacks travelers.
That's referring to Milo?
Yes. So what we can get from this phrase right here is that the prosecution, remember Cicero's defending Milo, prosecution must have made a case saying Milo was the one who aggressively attacked Clodius. They must have probably even called Milo an insidiator. Cicero's going to flip that on its head, and he's going to say, the dead guy is the one who looks like the insidiator. He was out there riding a horse. He didn't have all his Greek fancy boys with him. He didn't have his wife with him. He was armed with a dagger. Whereas my guy, the guy you supposedly call a highwayman, this guy, qui iter illud ad caedem faciendam apparasset, this guy who had apparasset, or if you just prefer paravissa, who had prepared his iter
Prepared this journey
ad caedem faciendam,
to
for the purpose of killing or for the purpose of making a
commit a murder.
slaughter. That's what you've said about my guy. I said how he was traveling. Cicero says, well, he was cum uxore.
With his wife.
With
He
his
was
wife
traveling with his wife in a rida.
in a carriage.
He was in a carriage with his wife. Again, both of these details seem to square with what Asconius said also. But by contrast, he's really making a big deal of this here. He's got his wife with him. He's in the family minivan. He was painulatus. He was wearing a traveling cloak. All right.
Are you gonna draw one?
I'm not
Oh, you gonna wear one?
wearing a coat. No, I'm not. All right, but here's the deal. How many of you seen The Incredibles? All right.
Is that the movie like with the family?
The family,
Okay,
yeah, little
yeah.
red suits out.
They're making another one.
So, Edna Mode. Edna Mode.
The
The
best
one
character ever.
who makes their costumes.
No, is that the little
Why will she not make capes?
They get stuck.
They get stuck in stuff and they cause the superhero trouble, right?
Love that.
Love that. Well, here's the deal. A traveling cloak is basically a cape. It's a big, heavy garment that travelers would have worn tied around the neck, and really it is just a cape. Might have had a hood to pull up in bad weather. It's not the kind of thing you would want if you were planning some quick and sudden surprise attack. It slows you down. It's a heavy garment. It's going to burden you. He says, you're charging that my guy is some sort of highway. He was out there to kill Clodius. I'm here to tell you, he was riding with his wife in the dadgum minivan with an overcoat and gloves on. Okay? This is not how a murderer dresses. And furthermore, and I've got to say this is one of the most amusing details, he says, my guy, Milo here, he had a comitatu, I'm going to the very last word,
Company.
he had a company of ancillarum,
Perhaps you really
of ancillarum.
like children.
Okay, ancillae are female servi.
Slaves.
So girl slaves. He had a group of girl slaves and puerorum with him.
Boys.
Now, hold on.
Girl, slave.
What did Asconius say that Milo had with him? Asconius said he's got this like paramilitary outfit. Cicero says it's a little group of slave girls and boys. Now that right there, that can't both be the same thing. But he goes on and he says it wasn't just a group of slave girls and boys, it was a magno group. Big. And impedito.
And slow.
And slow. And muliebri.
Womanly.
And delicato.
Effeminate.
Effeminate. He's got this big, slow-moving, womanly, effeminate group of slave girls and boys with him.
Wait, what does effeminate mean?
Effeminate means to act like a woman.
So that means slow.
So it's a
No.
So it's a song.
His point is,
Womanly is slow.
the group that he's got with him are not trained killers. These are not military guys. Totally the dead opposite of a military column of slaves and gladiators. One of these guys can't be telling the truth. Okay? The other thing is, though, I gotta think that this in some way would have embarrassed Milo, but he can't say anything about it. To say that my guy was with this really unmanly, weak, womanly bunch of slaves, you can see Milo wanting to say, what do you think, Leah?
I said, cause he said we,
Yes,
and then he said woman right after.
absolutely. Why? What's wrong with that?
When do you mean
Observation.
What's that?
I said it was just an observation.
That was an observation for Cicero too.
That's why I hate Cicero.
We all do.
Well, here's the thing, the curious thing is you would hate most of the world. The simple fact is, well, obviously, there are men who cannot lift as much as some women. And by and large, it's a fact, dear. In the human race and in most species, females are not as physically strong as males. It's not an insult.
Like male gorillas.
It's not an insult, it's a fact.
With any population size and then marginal,
What's that?
Yeah, with any and marginal.
Well, sure,
Yeah.
sure. The female typically is physically weaker, and that's what he's pointing out. He says that he doesn't have this band of military people. Yeah. Which would probably insult Milo. But he can't say, wait a minute, I had a bunch of military guys with me, because that would then make him look bad. Okay? Yes. I'm sorry, do we have more comment?
No, we said melanin poppin'. Skin color.
Okay. Yes?
If the people of the world don't assume that life is a false testimony and that they report to them to give true testimony, why can Cicero and Philo and anyone else on the defendant team side, why can they give false testimony?
Well, because there's the lawyers.
So they can.
Sure. Well, no, it's not fair.
No, but if you, the law is about true and what happened and the.
Well, it's supposed to. Well, I mentioned to you guys the other day. Cicero said, I don't need proof, right? All I gotta do is throw sand in the jury's face. It's also about a show,
But it's all
just as
about
it is
life.
today.
So the great orator that everyone in
Yeah.
the world looked up to was a pathological liar.
Well, I wouldn't say pathological at all.
Was a great liar.
I don't know, I say he was a great liar, but he lied when he felt it was necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like.
Yeah. Again, I would say you probably need not to like most of the human race, because most people have lied. Yeah.
No, I don't like. Okay.
Like, it's also Cicero, that's one of the biggest voices in Roman politics at this time, so no one's gonna stand up to him and say you're wrong.
Right.
He has
Right.
this giant reputation.
Right. I would say this, it's interesting, different classes over the years and their reactions to different figures in this one. Folks, I would not go looking for perfection in anybody. You're gonna be disappointed. There is nobody, your favorite person in the world has made mistakes, and not even mistakes, has done things that are deliberately wrong. It's called being human. So you can't hold anybody up to some standard of perfection. They're gonna let you down. So what you gotta look for is what are the good things that you can take from somebody, whether it's their writings or their actions, and say, hey, that's good stuff, I can go with that. And what are the stuff that you say, okay, that was really lousy, and reject that, without necessarily rejecting the entire person. Yes?
Like in politics, from what I've noticed, is like, most of the campaigns, like, they'll have like promises that make them true always, because you can't do everything, especially like in the really good terms, and there's just not enough time to get like, fix all the problems.
Well, like I've said to you before, all these people making promises who run for president, for the most part, it's all nonsense. They've got to work with Congress. I'm going to balance the budget. I'm going to reduce taxes. Are you kidding me? If any of these people read their own 8th grade U.S. history, they would know that's not true. Right? But we get an idea, say, okay, this is kind of what this person's about, I'm going to vote for. But you're right, that's right. That's right. They can't do it all. Yes.
I'm really confused. So I said I would like
same. Most people have done some things
Yeah,
not that much different.
not with their puppet, and in front of the whole world, and just to get back at someone they don't like.
I'm glad you still believe in humanity. Glad you still believe in humanity. All right, so we are about finished with this, so about another day, and then we shift gears to other books. For a couple more days, we shift gears to another book. You, Miss Elliott, if you would shut that off. Elliott, go ahead and shut that off for us, dear.